What is up, everybody? Mr. Curtis here. Welcome to our video on Cram sessions, trade routes. We're kind of doing a little overview of the trade routes. Trade routes are often kind of overlooked, or they're so kind of piecemeal thrown together because you're so focused on empires in AP world that I really think it's important to just take a step back and know what's going on with trade routes. The AP world loves asking questions, essay questions, short answer questions on trade routes and their impact, and it's really kind of important to know what's going on in each time period and how the trade routes really change and kind of stay the same over time. So we're looking at circa 1200 2001. We're going to go all the way through with the trade routes here. A couple things to remember before we just talk about specific trade routes is there's some commonality or things that almost always take place or exist with trade routes, and a couple things that if you see a question on trade routes, you can kind of pop these couple things in your mind and hopefully it'll help you answer a question. So number one, with trade, there's usually a couple things. Number one, spread of religion and ideas or belief systems. So we're going to see things like Buddhism and Christianity and Islam spread along trade routes along with ideas, things like gunpowder, ship making, that are going to transfer with people. So when the people come and trade, they're not only bringing the products with them, but they're also bringing new ideas and oftentimes their own beliefs. Also, with people coming into new regions, we have the syncretism or the mixing of different beliefs. So as, for example, Islamic merchants go out along the Indian Ocean trade route, when they come into contact with people, they often blend their traditional Islamic beliefs with their local beliefs. An example of this would be like the Swahili coast, so on the east coast of Africa, the blend of Arabic and Bantu, which is kind of that native African language and beliefs, and you blend them together to form something new, Swahili. We also have the spread of diseases. Black Death is kind of the most obvious one, which is the circa 1200 to 1450. But diseases are going to spread also along for 1450 to 1750 along the Atlantic trade route to the Americas. Also, people are going to gain wealth. Merchant activity is profitable. You are getting products and you are bringing them back to areas that don't have access to those products. Therefore, you can charge a lot of money for them and make a lot of money yourself. And those merchants oftentimes are forced to pay taxes, which will usually make some kind of royal, noble, official a lot of money as well as they tax those things. Our main trade routes throughout all of this, we have the Silk Road, the Indian Ocean trade route, and the Trans-Saharan trade route. Those are in the first time period, and then we have the Atlantic Ocean trade route kind of open up in the second time period, which we're going to get into in a second. Let's get into some of these specific time periods. I'm just going to do a quick overview here. I mentioned this in other videos, like on the Cram sessions. I'm not trying to go through every single thing nitty gritty. This is just a quick refresher, so I'm not covering all the bases. Go back and watch some specific videos if you want more on like the Indian Ocean in this time period or the Silk Road. Just kind of an overview. So we got circa 1200 to 1450. This is what our world map looks like, at least in Afro-Eurasia, Africa, Europe, and Asia. We have the Silk Road up here, which connects the East Asia or the east coast of China into the Middle East. We have the Indian Ocean trade route, which comes from the Mediterranean Sea to the Swahili coast over here. Will come up into Mesopotamia, and then South Asia and East Asia and Southeast Asia down here. We also have the Trans-Saharan trade, which comes across the Sahara Desert, connecting northern Africa and the Mediterranean region to West Africa, which has a lot of gold deposits here. We also, this isn't really a specific trade route, but I just do want to point out that we do have the Byzantine Empire and eventually the Ottoman Empire here that's spreading culture up into what is going to be like the Russian principalities or the Russian city-states. And then we also have some trade going on with the Venetian, with Venice and kind of the Italian city-states here. Here's the key ideas from this time period. We're going to have a lot of Islamic merchant activity. Islam promotes merchant activity because Muhammad was a merchant, and so Islam is going to be kind of the centerpiece for a lot of this time period in terms of who is involved in a lot of this trade. So in the Indian Ocean trade, we have a lot of Islamic merchant activity where they're not necessarily missionaries in the Christian Buddhist sense where you're trying to convert people, but people are naturally going to convert because it's easier to trade with someone who is of a similar culture and speaks a similar language. We also have innovations that are going to spread. We have a lot of ideas that are going to spread out of China, especially during the Mongol rule, as the Silk Road is stable and safe. And those ideas are going to spread out of there and really go to the Muslim empire here. And the Muslims are going to take, this Muslim empire is going to take a lot of ideas from a lot of different places. European ideas from the Greco-Roman period. We're going to take Chinese ideas. We're going to take Persian ideas. We're going to take Egyptian ideas. We're going to blend them together and mix them together and then kind of perfect them, and then they're going to spread out of the Middle East. So ideas like gunpowder and ship making are going to spread. Compass, astrolabe are going to spread during this time. Also, we have explorers using the trade routes during this period. Zheng He from China, aka Zheng He. We have Ibn Battuta, who's from the Muslim Empire, and Marco Polo. They're all utilizing these trade routes to explore, to write about their travels, and to encourage more people later on to explore and merchant activity. Also, we have some products that are going to be traded, and these products really are consistent throughout most of these time periods. So what we're going to talk about here, you're going to see, for the most part, throughout, we have China, obviously the silk and the porcelain, your fancy china that you use for Thanksgiving or whatever holiday you're celebrating. And then you also have the silk. Silk is soft, and it's much softer than kind of the typical wool that's going to be used. We have India or South Asia. Cotton and tea are our main things. India is one of the main producers of cotton throughout the entire history of the subcontinent. Also tea, which has caffeine and is a drug. And then we also have the gold in West Africa, which is going to come up to Northern Africa. 1450 to 1750, the main key here, we have the gunpowder empires and we have the age of European exploration. So we're going to incorporate this new trade route, the Atlantic Ocean, and we're going to set up a bunch of plantations and kind of this plantation economy, especially in Northern America, but also in the Caribbean as well, which is going to lead to Europeans incorporating chattel slavery and enslaving people from West Africa in this slave trade to the Americas, which is a huge deal. So we're incorporating this whole new region of the Americas into our Afro-Eurasian trade. So we have slavery coming across this way. We're also going to have sugar plantations and cotton plantations, and those plantations are going to bring back finished products to Europe or bring back the raw materials to Europe. And we also have silver. Don't forget the silver. Again, kind of a key to all this is we have silver mines here in South America. Those silver mines are going to be used for monetary exchange, but specifically to buy Chinese goods, because the Europeans have really not had anything that the Chinese have wanted up to this point. Now they do. So there's that part. And also, kind of one other side piece of this is, don't forget the mercantilism here in the Americas. So the Americans colonists could only trade with their European mother country, and they had to buy goods from their European mother country. So it's a very unequal balance. And we also have these joint stock companies, which are these trade groups who are given a monopoly and a charter by the king of whatever country they're from to trade in certain areas. This is the place to be. The Indian Ocean is the centerpiece of trade in this time period. The Silk Road is really starting to die out, and by 1750, I would say it's pretty much dead for the most part. I mean, there's still some trade going on there, but why would you trade over 4,000 miles through little stops when you can just take a boat around the coast here and hold a lot more cargo? So this is really the focal point of a lot of trade. We really see Portuguese merchants here. We see the Mughal Empire involved here. We see eventually the Qing dynasty. So we have a couple major dynasties in here promoting trade, getting involved in trade. We also have the monsoon winds, which are important as well. 1750 to 1900, this is the time period of industrialization and imperialism. So this imperialism period is really going to transform who's incorporated, and because of industrialization, we can incorporate more people into this global trade. Areas that we couldn't get to before, Central Africa, for example, or areas in Southeast Asia that are that Europeans were trying to enter these markets forcibly often, but they couldn't get there because of diseases and lack of transportation. Now, because of these technological advancements from the Industrial Revolution, we can incorporate areas here, more areas in India here, areas in Southeast Asia. Also, through this technological advances, we build canals, and canals are going to be built, for example, in the Suez Canal here, which shortens shipping routes. Instead of having to go all the way around Africa, you can now come through the Mediterranean and come this way to get to India. So it's going to shorten time. We also have the Panama Canal in the Americas. Instead of going all the way South America, you can cut through Central America. So we have these more regions incorporated in trade. Trade is faster, it's quicker, which means the price of things can go down, which gives people more access to it. Also, we have the colonized area. So this is imperialism. So we have colonies. Remember the scramble for Africa. Africa is split up during this time period. Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Asia, Australia. So all these areas are now, or if they weren't colonized in the age of exploration period or European exploration, they're now colonized. And we're going to see a lot of raw materials being sent or shipped to the the mother country, specifically in Western Europe. So in Sub-Saharan Africa, we have rubber, palm oil, precious metals, specifically gold, but we're going to see other precious metals as well, like copper. And then India, we see cotton, we see tea, and opium. Don't forget that opium trade in South Asia by the British is going to come to East Asia and to China, and it's going to lead to another imbalance of trade in China. And then Australia down here, which is going to be colonized by the British, we have a lot of precious metals that are going to be shipped back to Britain. With all of this trade interaction, we also have the migration of people because there's colonization going on, because the British have an empire throughout the world. The people from that empire are going to be able to travel throughout the empire. So people from Britain are going to go to Australia. People from India are going to go to Australia. People from India are going to go to South Africa. So we're going to see a lot of movement of people along these trade routes, especially people from China coming across because of better ship technology are able to now come easily to the United States and to work on the industrialization process, sometimes through indentured servitude. So last but not least is the most recent time period, which is 1900 to 2001. A lot more, we're just continuing this improvement of technology and continuing like shipping cargo and containers that are going to be able to ship goods a lot faster, a lot quicker than we would have. We're cutting down the time significantly from the period of 1750 to 1900 to ship things. So we're going to have this increased interaction and almost what is called the globalized economic or globalized economy, where everyone is now intertwined and interconnected with people. We have the manufacturing economies, which are generally in South, Southeast, and East Asia. They put the stuff together. And then we have the knowledge economies, the people who actually invent these things and come up with the concepts and have the business in place to distribute these things. So knowledge economies are generally industrialized, and that includes Japan. And then the manufacturing economies, we're going to see, like I said, East, Southeast, and South Asia. We really, and let's not forget Central America as well. We're going to see the end of imperialism in this time period, but we're still going to use these trade routes. So the former colonies, people from those former colonies, after they gain their independence, are going to travel along these trade routes to go to the mother country to live, or the former mother country to live. You will notice here that the Silk Road is pretty much dead at this point. We're really using the Indian Ocean trade route still, right here. We also have the Atlantic Ocean trade route, and we're incorporating the Pacific much more, going across the Pacific Ocean more so than we did in the previous time period. So we have migration, free trade as well, where regions are going to trade with each other. So increased cooperation. NAFTA is an example. European Union is an example. That's a lot on trade routes. That's kind of my quick overview, quick thing. You got any questions? You let me know. Until next time on the Cram Sessions, I'm out.